ASMR.
The woman in the white dress. This happened just yesterday, so it's fresh in my mind. I'm not quite sure what to think of it because it was just so bizarre and unbelievable. I might have just been sleep deprived. So last night at maybe 2300 hours, I was walking around my block. My town is relatively safe, so I didn't feel in danger. Plus, it was a pretty night. I'd been walking for around 5 minutes when a pale woman with blonde hair and a white dress caught my eye from across the street. She was about my height and looked to be around my age, too. I didn't actually pay attention to her at first after I noticed her. But while I circled the block again, she was on the same side of the street, a couple feet in front of me. She was standing on the curb, staring at the cars passing by. It was a main road, so even that late people were still driving on it. I said hello to her, and she turned her gaze to me. I couldn't see her face super well, but from what I think I saw, she had no pupils or color in her eyes. She just stared at me. After a while, I asked her if she was okay. She didn't respond again and simply pointed at the road. I was really confused. I didn't understand. Right as a red car started coming down the road, she stepped into the road. The car slammed into her, and it was a bloody mess. The driver immediately stopped and jumped out. It was a man in his mid-20s. We both spoke about it, freaking out. He called the police, and I went around the car to see the state of the girl. Once I circled around the car, she was gone. Not gone as in dead. Gone as in she just wasn't there. The blood on the road was gone too, but not gone from his car. After the police arrived, they concluded that it was some big hoax that a kid made up, and a guy went along with it. They concluded that the blood on the truck was probably paint. Nothing else was put up about it. I'm still not sure if what happened was real. It felt so real, but I don't believe in the paranormal. I don't know what it was, if it was just a dream or if it was real. I remember it like it was real. I feel like I can't leave the house now. I don't understand anything now, and I kind of feel like I'm going crazy. Has anyone else ever experienced something like this? There's something to be said about owning a cat. My cat is currently in the background eating her food. I was never a cat person. I always thought dogs reigned supreme, and that cats were just snobby little jerk-offs. About 6 months ago, a friend convinced me to adopt a kitten. I definitely felt like at the time I was was doing it as just a favor to my friend because she didn't want the kitten to go to an animal shelter and she could not keep any more pets. But I was not thrilled about the idea. Don't get me wrong. I wasn't mean to the kitten or anything. It's just cats weren't my cup of tea, so, you know, I fed her, gave her a pet or two, and went on with my day. One night, I was laying in bed, and the kitten was being so annoying. She kept jumping on the bed and accidentally clawing me in the leg all the way up. The first time it scared the crap out of me. The next 3 times it hurt and I was getting mad. I swatted her away. For a little while she gave up. And I fell asleep. The next thing I remember, I opened my eyes. I don't know if I woke up with a start or if something just made me open my eyes, but I opened my eyes. And I had this overwhelming feeling of paralysis and fear. I was having a hard time breathing. The room was pitch black, but I felt like something was there. I could feel my heart beating out of its chest, but I couldn't even move. I couldn't even turn my head to look around the room. All I could do was stare straight ahead. As I continued to do this and try and regulate my breathing, which was becoming more and more difficult, I saw what looked like floating, glowing eyes in the darkness. It looked like they were bobbing around and gliding slowly towards me. All of a sudden I heard a weird cackling sound. It was terrifying. The eyes were coming closer and closer. I felt like I was about to pass out. All of a sudden, here comes Miss Kitten. Jumps onto my leg. I couldn't even feel her claws in my leg at this point. I was so terrified and paralyzed. She hissed bravely at whatever this thing was. She hissed and made this low groaning, moaning sound that sounded like she dug deep into her little gut to bring it out. The cackling stopped and the eyes drew back quickly and suddenly just disappeared. I've never had that experience again. But I can tell you that little Miss Kitten, who's now quite a bit bigger, gets a front row seat right on my lap when I'm watching TV. And she gets the best food. And she gets to sleep right on my leg. every single night. Dogs are cool, but there's something to be said about owning a cat. The rental house. We rented a house when I was about 32. We had a choice of the house that we rented or the one across the street. The one across the street was in pretty bad shape on the outside. And we figured that if it was that bad on the outside, we can't imagine how long it's been since someone's been living there, and the amount of cleaning would just be insane. So we went with the other house. Now the house we rented required a lot of cleaning as well. In fact, it required so much cleaning that it made us even more relieved that we didn't rent the house across the street, because it just made us think that it must be terrible over there. But after about a month, we had everything cleaned top to bottom. All of our things were moved in. Everything was on the wall. Everything was on shelves. Everything was out of totes, and it was looking pretty good. One night, I was playing around on the desktop computer that was up against a wall in the corner right near our front window. And I noted this was probably around 9 o'clock at night. And I noticed that even though the shades were drawn across the street in the old rental house, the lights were on. To me, this indicated that someone must have decided to either someone decided to rent the place and was over there working on cleaning it, or the people in charge, like the rental property that was in charge of renting the house, had sent people over there to start cleaning it so that they could show it and hope that someone would rent it. Out of nosy curiosity, every now and then that night I'd peek over. I saw shadows moving around. At one point, I witnessed the shade slowly lift up, and a dark shadow of a person was in the window. It looked like they were staring back at me, but I was kind of embarrassed that I got caught looking that way, like I was being nosy, so I quickly looked away. When I looked back over, the shade was pulled down again, but the lights were still on. A couple of hours later, I looked out the window, and the lights were still on. But almost about 5 seconds after I'd looked that last time, the lights suddenly went out. I also noticed, by the way, that this entire time there was no vehicle in the driveway. So I thought either someone had been dropped off there for the night to clean, or someone was supposed to come and pick them up, something like that. So it was kind of whatever. Well, a few days later, I went to pay the rent in person instead of leaving it in the drop box. And I got to talking to the lady ladies at the front desk. And I mentioned, oh, I guess probably I'll be having neighbors across the street soon. And they said, oh, really? What do you mean? And I mentioned about what I had seen. Both of the ladies looked at each other and didn't really know what to say. I was like, what? What? Apparently, according to them, they had no knowledge of anyone being even interested in looking at that house. They hadn't sent anyone over to clean it yet. And there was no power even turned on at that residence yet. And during the entire 2 years that we rented that house, no one ever moved in. And I never saw lights on again. But to be honest, I tried not to look at the house at night if I could help it.